So John, where are you from? Where's home?
Bustang.
Bustang?
I live, if you drove off the back straightaway at State Line Speedway, you'd run right down my driveway.
Oh, okay.
On Sandberry Road, yeah.
So what was your connect to the state line? How was your first introduction? Through your parents? Was your
My stepdad, Whitey, Tony White, and my mom, he was involved in racing for all them years, so I was just a young kid at 7, 8 years old and went to the track. Got drug up there.
For the camera, Tony was associated principally with who?
Race-wise?
Yeah.
Through the earlier years, he had cars, like I said, Dick Litz, Bill Wheeling, Dave Turner. He was with Snars, Bob, from 70 until 70, 71, and 72. Him and Jim Fardank had worked with him. Bob had a Nova in 70, drove it for Berglund Chevrolet. 71, he ran a Chrysler for him, and Paul Hellman had a car together with Jim Reed. And in 72, they went back and ran a Camaro for Schultz again, and that was the last year that Tony and Jim worked together. And then Frosty. Bob was running a Sportsman for Frosty in 72. So they took that Sportsman, if I'm not mistaken, and made a late model, and that's where Bob ended up running the late model in 73. So Tony had a year off. I was still young yet, 12, 13 years old. Oh yeah, well we worked on him right at his house from, well, that would have been in 74, him and Skip got together. Okay. That was Skip's first year late model, was 74, which I talked to Skip out there tonight.
Yeah.
I remember these dates really well.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so 74, 5, they had, Tony worked with Skip in the late model division. 76, they built a car, team cars at Skip and Ed Schultz ran a car in 76. They were at the Spirit of 76. And they worked on them at the car at my mom and Tony's house in Sandberry Road. They had 2 late models there. And they built them there. I remember one night they wrecked into each other and crashed. So that was in 76. 77 was getting back to my 77. I ran motorcycles, but in 77, I got a chance to, I'd raised 2 cows. I lived with, of course, Tony and myself and Whitey. And I sold them when we bought square tubing, a Camaro front stub, a Monza body from Skip Furlow, and we built a Sportsman, and Ronnie Blackman drove it. I was 15 years old. At the time, I wasn't even allowed in the pits because you had to be 16 to get in the pits. So he drove, Ronnie and Tony and myself built the car. I was a fabricator by then. I had a welder and a torch in my hand by the time of 12 years old because my stepdad was an iron worker.
Yeah.
So we built that car and Ronnie drove for it. He drove it for us in 77. He won a point champion. He won 6 features that year. And we started out the season with no wing because years ago he run Sportsman. We wanted to try it with no wing. And he didn't really like it, so he put a wing on it, and it made a big difference in the car.
Was Ronnie sort of a hands-on guy at the time, or did he defer to your decision making?
He did at the track. He wasn't around a lot working on it at that point because he had his, he was involved in the junkyard down there with, I'm trying to think the owner, Ronnie, and was our half owners down there at West End Autos at the time. So he was really involved in there. So
he's literally retired for a couple of years, comes in 77, jumps in a car, which your stepfather, and they wins the point championship.
And the following year, I was old enough to go in the pits. I was 16. I had a lot of laps around on the track myself because Chubb, Frank, and myself are same age, and we living right next to the track. I worked there, helped clean up and stuff like that. So Chubb and myself had thousands of laps in pack cars, and his brother Jim.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 12, 13 years old, I was hanging at the track because I lived right around the corner. So I got to know Chubb and all them real well. Jerry, Don, Leonard, and Lloyd, all them guys, So I knew the owners and worked at the track. So being around the track a lot, my stepdad being involved, that was just all my life, So like I said, Ronnie drove that 77. I got to race against him in 78.
That same car?
I ran the car that he drove. So, and in 78, Harold Lobb and Cale Groves built a Ford Pinto body car for him. and that would be the last year he drove that I recall. And 78. In the 78, we were blessed to, of course, the car was a good car, you know, handled well and stuff like that. And I had a lot of laps on the track, and I'd raced motorcycles prior to that. So in 78, I didn't go to homecoming, I think it was, or the prom, whatever's in the spring. And we won our first feature on,
no kidding,
would have been June 3rd of 1978. And Chubb's brother, Jim, got married on June 2nd of 78. And, wow. Chubb and myself both won our first features that night.
Really?
He was running the spectator division, Chubb was, and I was running the sportsman. And Leisure Time Toys out of Corey sponsored the race, and we both got free Bell helmets. He won a trophy and a helmet, and we won $250 in a helmet for winning the sportsman. And that was my
16-year-old kid with $250 in your pocket. Did Tony let you keep it or not?
No, we always just put it back in the racing.
Okay.
That was our thing, you know. Whatever we took in, we put back in the racing. Of course, you went, you know, that was all junkyard stuff you had back then. You fabricated stuff, and everything was out of the junkyard. So I don't remember where Ronnie finished that night. We started on the pole, ran a real good race, you know, and Bruce Ordusky was pushing me across the finish line. He was so I don't think we didn't get a win for a few more years after that, you know. So we struggled.
John, where did your number come from?
Year I graduated, 79. I graduated from Southwestern in 79, so I just kind of picked that year. People thought I was a Jay Piler fan, you know.
Exactly.
Because, you know,
that's why.
I, no disrespect, I didn't know how to even know Jay. I knew of him because he raced in all them years, but so I did like Jay. But I remember sitting in the stands with when I was in 67, 68, and Ronnie'd win that coupe division, and people would boo, you know. He'd be on the outside just slinging right around there, so, yeah. Went into super lates in 84, ran a custom car that Stan Hoover had built, or sold him, so that was, but being around Toby and Craig Briggs and them guys like that, you know, all from Sherwood, and Rick, and so I got to run against all them guys, you know, and of course Dick and all them guys, and so that was good racing then, you know, and I think we went super late in 84, and then I ran till 94 in that division, and got priced out of it and got out of the racing. Yeah. You know, and 95 I did drive for a late model for a guy down in Ridgeway, a guy by the name of Tom Newrider. I ran 1 year for that. He'd bought all our stuff, and he got into racing, and ended up driving 1 year. That would have been 95. And then I didn't run until 03. I ran Blacktop 1 year on the truck series up to Erie. And I ran sprint cars from 04 to 09 for Paul Johnson, PJ.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I ran sprint cars.
Where were you racing that car? Lernerville?
Sprint cars?
Yeah.
We ran, you had two of them. You had a 360 series and a 410. We ran the Patriot series in Lernerville. Tri-City was a 410 car mostly. Sharon. We tried a few outlaw races, never made up in Canada and stuff like that, but we finally got a win up to Erie in the Patriot series in the 360. We won a race up there one night. Ran out of fuel at the last lap.
What's the difference between driving a late model and driving a sprint car?
They're a lot quicker, a lot lighter. You steer them with the throttle. If you get out of the gas, you have no control, so you have to be in the gas a lot on them. So they're fun, a lot quicker. I grew up racing motorcycles as a kid until I was old enough to drive cars, and then running sportsman's, being an open wheel division. I think I always enjoyed open wheels more. If sprint cars would have been around here in this general area as a younger kid, I would have loved being in a sprint car, but they just weren't. You know, Lernerville was close to Sharon and stuff like that. So we were blessed to have a good car and run against a lot of good drivers, you know, and stuff like that, and a lot of respect on the track. You know, of course, Dick and Ron Davies and Lars and all these people. You could race hard against them. There was a little bumping going on, but always really good running. At the end of the night, you know, you hung your helmet up and have a few beers in the pits afterwards. Them was the most important things, you know. Yeah. In the racing, you win some, you lose some. We had a lot of good races, you know, and won some races, and probably the most exciting for me and my stepdad was the very first night that I ran super lates. at State Line. We started on the pole and Skip Furlow started off the pole, or vice versa, I don't recall. And we jumped in the lead, and Skip passed us, and we passed Skip back to win the race that night.
Wow.
First night ever in the Super Late. So it was a good car. And I remember Dave Turner saying to my stepdad, well, anybody can win from the pole. But this is years ago when you used to start in the back, in that rotation thing. It's changed a lot. So it upset Whitey a little bit about that. So the next night at State Line, we started 16th, and I don't recall who we passed with a couple laps to go to win the race. So my stepdad was a redhead, so you can kind of know what he was like. He went and got a hold of Dave Turner, not a hold of him, but had words with him and say, we started in the back. So that was probably the second win in that late model was probably my
You won your
best.
first 2 races ever in late models?
The State Line, yeah.
Wow, John,
Holy
that puts you in a
crap.
class by yourself.
In the second one was we passed 15 cars to get there,
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a,
In the third,
Dave Turner.
including Dave Turner, in the third night at State Line, we passed Dave for the lead, and I pulled off the track because the oil pressure light come on. We would have got 3 in a row.
well,
The car was just a real good car. It hooked up, and anybody could have drove it. It just was. I was the one behind the seat, but it's a team, and Tony was really good at setting cars up, and that's the old-fashioned thing. It was always a team. And probably the toughest thing was for me to do in '95 when Tony had committed back to Skip in '95, and I was running for Tom Newrider, and I was running a late model with a strange crew I'd never been with before in my whole life. And going to a track, I get out of the car, and it's, for all the years I'd conversed with Tony about what we needed to do with the car, and all of a sudden I didn't have him. I was lost.
yeah.
And we ran Conneaut that year on a regular basis, and Tony and Skip were running Conneaut because he was helping, and we parked next to him, and that's when I ran my best at Conneaut. I get out of the car and I go talk to him.
Really?
Yeah. So them were good years, and so I'm glad I went through it. I got, we have a lot of friends over here and stuff like that, so it's just.
The funny stories about Ron Blackburn.
Like I said, he was running around out there, and he was leading the race, and the wing had come unfolded back, and then it fell off. And next lap around, I don't recall if he hit it or not, but somebody ran the wing over, and like I said, he reached up, fell out the car because the wing was right above his head there, and he was feeling around to see if the wing was there. And he's just thinking, that wing looks familiar, and he said, that's my wing out there, so. And he finished, like I said, he run really well with that car. He won 6 races that year, and either win or, we had some new suspension designs that year. We're using Heim joints and three bar and what have you. It was kind of new to racing in that era, and we were trying some stuff, and we had problems with some stuff breaking. He'd be leading and stuff would break, but he ran awfully strong in that car and stuff like that. And he had a couple crashes with it, but he was quite a wheel man.
Tony had a reputation of a guy you didn't want to mess with.
Tony was a redhead hothead, and yeah, I seen a few altercations at times. In my younger days, I remember a guy by the name of Tim Hoff. He was a little aggressive driver out there, and I'd had some problems with him in the sportsman days. And I remember I got out of the car. I was going to go and talk to Tim, and I wasn't. And I got about 8 feet away from Tim, and Tony come flying by me and threw a haymaker at me. And our buddy Mine Doves, which helped me through the years, was with us. But anyways, that was some of the stuff that took place at the racetrack. He always handled it, took care of it, nothing ever bad. But Tony lived for racing. He was at the track when it opened up, and he was an iron worker for a living, but he just loved working on cars and coming around.
You almost didn't even need a trailer, John, to get the car to the racetrack.
No.
You could have drove it over.
We had nights at the racetrack where after the heat races. One night we wanted to change the suspension because the car wasn't working good. We'd always trying something. We flat towed it back to the house with a chain and come back over, and for the feature, because years ago we used to run a heat semi and feature, but for the feature we went from a leaf spring car to a half leaf spring car one night and come back over and won the feature.
Really?
Changed the suspension at the house. We were that close, you know, we could tow it over. And I know it was other times, I think one night we blew a head gasket, pulled it home and changed it. You know, you just have a time, you could do it quick. That was handy. It was real handy living there.
John, I got a memory, and I hope I got the story right. I've got a memory of a night where you and Tony had a brand new body on a car. And like the first or second lap of a race, it seemed like the paint came off the side of the car.
That is correct.
Tell me that story, will you?
Yeah, we built the body of aluminum, and that's back before painted aluminum, you know. I mean, this is what you bought aluminum.
Right, exactly.
And a guy by the name of Leaky Lee, we call him, Lee Vinton, he was a painter. He was our painter for the car, and he had to etch it or sand it or do this, whatever had to be done didn't happen properly. And he took quite a lot of busting for that, because we went out on the track and it was just like things you see nowadays where it's flaking off and falling off the car. So that is very true. Yeah.
He went around the first lap, you could see the whole side of the car. Went around the second lap,
And
it was
start
all
peeling.
it was all gone. You could see it coming off the car.
Yeah, that was, I don't know what year that would. That would have been in probably, I don't even remember if that was a Sportsman or a late model.
No, it was a late model.
Late model.
I'm going to say somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah, that would probably been
mid to late 80s.
Yeah, that would have been about probably 88, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's about right.
Somewhere in that area. Yeah.
That's a paint job. No doubt the painter
Yeah.
on a ribbing.
We had a lot, you know, we had another feature win in a late model one night. We got out in the lead, and upper left A-frame broke off at the ball joint. And being the left front, it didn't make a lot of difference in the car, and still had some steering. But when the A-frame broke, the spindle come in and smacked the brake line, broke the brake line off the caliper. So I didn't have any brakes. And I knew it, you know, you still use brakes no matter what. So I'm leading, and of course nobody's really in front of you. So I'm entering the corner a little slower, and somebody's catching me. Actually, Rob Malloy is the one that ended up catching me. But with a lap to go, there was a lap car we were catching, and I went down the back straightaway, and I didn't pass the lap car. I just kept them to the inside of me, and I just went around that lap car, and we got to the checker and won it. And I didn't know the A-frame was broke, because it didn't really affect it. All I knew was the brake line was broke, but that A-frame was just laying right in, and we still got a picture in Victory Circle of that A-frame towed in. So just a little luck. It takes a lot of luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Yep.